while the President is present, there is no need for me to make any contribution. Just a little perspective on some of the far-reaching decisions he has taken. The oil subsidy has become an albatross round the neck of the Nigerian economy for the past 40 to 50 years. And he took the bold step of removing the fuel subsidy. That will certainly free up resources that will come down to the states for your developmental initiatives. But it must be borne in mind that we should all be aware of the consequences of unveiling a masquerade. The oil scam cabal is a very, very powerful cabal that are dangerously loaded, and they will go out of their way to undermine this great initiative by Mr. President. I will urge our colleagues, our governors, to really rally around the President and see to it that we call up the bluff of all the machinations that will be unleashed on the polity in the coming weeks. Some will certainly resist this decision. But even now, oil is going for 740 naira per liter in Togo. Cameroon had to close down their refinery because of cheap oil coming in from Nigeria. So there is a need for us to really rally around this beautiful decision by the President, because it's for the good of our economy. Our economy is in a very, very bad shape. We either get rid of the oil subsidy or the oil subsidy gets rid of the Nigerian nation. That's how bad things are. So I just want to reiterate that let us rally around Mr. President. Let us not budge. Let us be resilient. Let us stand our ground and see that these two decisions, the collapse of the multiple exchange rates that has fueled a parallel market of corruption, and the fuel subsidy scam. Thank you very much, and may God bless us all.
We woke up suddenly to hear that subsidy is gone by Mr. President on the day of his inauguration, without a cabinet, without going to the National Assembly. And we were told that there was provision up to the end of June. And we wouldn't know whether there was vehement or adjustment. And why they invited us for a meeting by 2 p.m., they had the NNPC PLC as a private company went ahead to fix prices. And we are still wondering whether it is the function of companies who are limited liability companies to fix prices of petroleum products in Nigeria. And the level of increase brings much, leaves more to be desired, in the sense that the issue of subsidy has not been probed all these years. And for anybody to close that chapter is like covering fraud. The Nigerian Labour Congress has called the NEC members for us to interrogate some of these processes, to know who and who we are collecting the subsidy money. Very important. And how much they have collected, at least in the last 8 years. Because it is not enough to say subsidy or no subsidy. Because if the report we are getting on landing cost is correct, if landing cost is $30 per barrel, and a barrel gives you over 150 something liters, you see that we are talking of about 18 cents plus. and that will be about 90 naira. And if it is 90 naira and they are selling at 185, they're already making more than 100% profit. And for anybody to announce, or for NNPC to illegally announce 500, 400, all that, we are here to interrogate the process and for NEC to give directive. Already, at the meeting they held with us, we have asked for the withdrawal of that figure for meeting to continue. And NLC NEC will give further direction on what to do if they fail to withdraw the figures that is all over. 50% of the states are not paying minimum wage of 30,000. Some are still paying 18,000. And it takes an average of 40,000 naira now for you to fill your tank that will last for 1 week. The small I pass my neighbor generator will not take less than 10 liters. And 10 liters cannot last a night. And it's addition of about 3,000. And in the meeting, they were not only provocative, we saw the contempt at which they held Nigerians by saying they will give people 5,000 as palliative, and that they are going to give 5,000 for 50 million Nigerians, whom they call the poorest of the poor. But the Bureau of Statistics said that there are 133 million Nigerians that are multidimensionally poor. And that's what they told us. And maybe they will give it for 6 months or thereabout. There is no other condition, no provision. We looked at alternatives, which we'll discuss in 2021. Nobody wants to mention about the repair of refineries. All questions bordering around that were not responded to. Nobody responded to the issue of CNG, which we agreed that the vehicles could be converted within 3 months. No response. So it's like there's no alternative on ground. And one of them said it's a fiat accompli. So with this, that's why we have called you here, to brief you and to seek further directive on how to go about this. But let me say this. The propaganda will be on. The blackmail will be on. This matter has been on subsidy for the past 20 years. This is not a new policy of the NLC. This is not designed by this NLC. Subsequent NLC, previous NLC stands on this. That whereas the federal government has been subsidizing the rich in this country, and for some time now, between 2016 to 2023, almost over 26 trillion has been spent on import waiver alone to the rich. That whereas over $6 billion have been spent on turnaround maintenance, there's nothing to show for it. That whereas the federal government released about $2.7 billion for the repair of 2 or 3 major refineries in the country, and spent the same amount of investment in the Dangote refinery. There's nothing on ground. That whereas the labor unions have provided alternative, including the recommendation of CNG, which is eco-friendly and cheaper, and that by 2021, the engagement between the labor unions, NLC, TUC, and the federal government, the then minister, made us to understand that the CNG cost will be about 90 naira per liter. And that whereas the NNPC have refused to tell us the landing cost of a barrel of petroleum up to this moment. That whereas the NNPC has refused to disclose the beneficiaries of the subsidy, the Nigerian Labour Congress is hereby calling for proper investigation in the process of subsidy, to know those who are the beneficiaries, to know the amount that is involved, and to investigate it properly before it is swept under the carpet. That the current attempt to sweep the issue of the fraudulent practices in the subsidy regime should not be tolerated by all well-meaning Nigerians. That the NEC in session directed that the leadership of NLC should be cautious of negotiating with people without portfolio. That it is instructive that until a government is properly constituted and the people who will negotiate with labor are such people with mandate and capacity to commit the government of the day, such negotiations may not be valid wherever. Consequently, the NLC decided that if by Wednesday next week, that the NNPC, a private